Hey everyone, Beth here. You haven't heard from us in a long time and I really apologize for that. I hope everybody had a great Christmas and a wonderful New Year. I started out the New Year on December 30th with a flood in my apartment. It's now January 21st and they still haven't fixed things, so that's why I'm filming in here. So I noticed that we're getting a lot of followers on Facebook. Thank you very much. It's wonderful that you're interested in what we're doing. Unfortunately, we're not able to really do it at the moment because of the environment that we all find ourselves in. Nobody should be doing any paranormal investigations right now in anybody's homes, period. Not just because there's the possibility of you getting sick or us getting sick, my team getting sick. There's also, it's against the law. It's against the law. They're really enforcing the COVID restrictions right now. And you can get fined, a heavy fine, up to $1,200. So not a good idea to do investigations right now because of health, and because of legal reasons, and because of financial reasons. So that's why there's no investigations going on until further notice. Now, in the meantime, I've been trying to figure out what kind of content we can give to you. I know I was doing best top 5. Maybe I should get back into that, but a lot has been going on with my work and stuff like that. So maybe I'll get back into this. But one of the things I'm going to be doing is because of asbestos, wonderful, I might have to go to a hotel for a night. And I actually was watching a lot of the enthusiast channels on YouTube, and they're all using this new app. I'm not going to tell you what app it is. Some of you may have already figured it out. But I actually downloaded it. I had to pay for it. And I was going to do it here, but I'm thinking if I do get pushed to a hotel, the hotel that I might be staying at, it's fairly new as a hotel, but I think the building is like 60, 70 years old. So if it actually works, maybe it'll work better there. Even though people are still saying, Josette, my China-headed doll, is haunted. So if I do have to go to this hotel, I'll take my recording equipment and we'll see if it works. But, well, like I said, I'm the skeptic of the group, so we'll have to see. Another thing that we're going to do tonight is we're going to tell our own personal ghost story. If you saw our question and answer video that we did a couple of years ago, Candace and I, she did mention her Ouija board story, and I'm hoping to get her in front of a camera to tell us all about it. But tonight I'm going to tell you my own personal ghost story, my one that happened when I was a child. And when you're about 6 years old and stuff like this happens to you, it's good to have very understanding parents. And again, my mom is the one that opened up my mind to investigating and figuring things out. So thank you, Mom. But this ghost story back, like I said, goes back to when I was about 6 years old. We had moved up from Calgary to, wasn't Onaway, it was between Calahoo and Onaway in this really small house. But it wasn't our house that was having the problem. It was a house that my cousins actually bought. I don't know if they bought or rented it, but it was in Onaway as well. Right in the town of Onaway, right across from the museum that we featured on our channel a couple times. And it was built around the same time, so it was built in the 1920s. Now, I'm the youngest of the youngest on my mom's side. Lots of family members. So I had cousins that would have been 20 years older than me, so they would have had children, gotten married and had children, but, you know, even if I was 6 years old. So there was like a large gap there. And anyway, I'm not going to use any real names in this just to protect the privacy of my family members. So I will be changing the names. But my cousins had bought this house, or rented the house, still not sure. They must have bought it because they redid it in Onaway. And they had a little girl. And the little girl we'll call Shelly. We'll call Shelly. And Shelly was about 4 years old. And anyway, they moved into this house, and like I said, it was built 1920 sometime. And they redid they put up wallpaper, you know, they redecorated it, did the painting and stuff like that. But one weird thing about this house is that it had a dirt floor in the basement. They had plywood on this dirt floor, and that's where they had their washer and dryer. Now that's going to come into play in a bit. So I have to point out at this point, my father, I love him, I miss him, he was my hero. Sheet metal worker, brilliant sheet metal worker, very good at what he did. He did it for about 50 years. Now a sheet metal worker now would be called heating and air conditioning specialist. Now that's what my dad did as a specialty, that's what my uncle did as a specialty, and that's what my cousins did as a specialty. Now this house, no matter what they did to it, or how they worked on it, or what they tried, they could not get it warm. It was even freezing in summertime, but in winter especially. They replaced the insulation. Of course, they put a brand new furnace in there. They protected the windows. They just couldn't get the place warm. It was always cold. And I can even remember the cold to this day. When you were sitting in the living room, it was like it was going to the bones of you. That's the way that I can only, it was like almost like that wet cold that sometimes when you go outside it gets through your jacket. That's what it felt like all the time in that place, all the time. Now, my first recollection of what happened there, I was playing, and again, I was a couple of years older than my cousin. We were playing in the living room. I even remember what we were doing. She had a toy iron, and we were ironing doll clothes. And she had this, it was like a rocking horse, but it was one of those rocking horses that you have springs, that had the springs attached to it. And it was in the front part, which was more like a sunroom kind of type thing. And they had the horse in there, and we were playing with playing dolls and stuff like that, and all of a sudden it started rocking. It started going up and down. At first it started going like this, went down, and then like this, and then it went up and down like somebody was on it. Kind of freaked me out. Didn't seem to freak her out, but it freaked me out a bit. Now, looking back all those years, because that house was in front of a road, it could have been a matter of a truck driving by and causing it to do that. But I don't recall any trucks driving by. Then again, I was 6 years old, and that was ancient times. So, could have been a truck, don't know. But let's continue. Now, the continuation of my story actually happens on, believe it or not, Halloween. I remember my mom dressed me up as a fortune teller. I had the scarf around my hair, and I had jewelry on. But it was cold. It was cold that October 31st. And I remember having a big jacket on. And after Halloweening, of course I went Halloweening with my cousin. We went back to their place, and it was so cold in that house. Even with my down-filled jacket on, I still could not get warm. Anyway, well, the parental units, decided to go play cards or whatever they were going to do. I went to her bedroom, which was more in the front of the house. When you came in, it was to the side, I believe. And that house creaked. Again, it was built in the 1920s. It had the original floors in it. It creaked. And her room really creaked. But we were in her room, and we were playing with Lego. And we're putting up the Lego, and she could be real bratty, like most cousins can be. And we were playing Lego, and I was pretty good at artistic stuff even back then. And I was building this really amazing house. She got mad, and she crushed it. She broke my Legos. And we got into a fight, and I swore at her. I was 6 years old. I swore at her using a word that I heard a sibling use, that I shouldn't have used. And instead of like having a temper tantrum, she got up very quietly, kind of looked at me, sat at the edge of her, or the head of her bed, went and sat at the head of her bed. We were playing at the edge of her bed, the foot of her bed. She got up, walked up to the foot of her bed, and she goes, "You're gonna get it now." And I probably swore at her again because again, repeating what I heard. And she started talking to somebody in midair and giggling. Like, this is what was happening. She was like, that's what she was doing to nobody there. She had like a barrel. It was about this. I had to really kind of remember because I was a lot shorter then. It was a barrel about this big, and it was half full of pennies. So that's still pretty heavy. That's still pretty heavy. All of a sudden, that barrel flipped over and went rolling at me and crushed some of the Legos, and I went screaming out of the room to my dad. And that was the last time I was in her room. And explanation for that, she didn't even touch it. She was 4 years old. She could probably have knocked it over, but she was on the bed swinging her legs, giggling. This thing flipped over and came rolling at me, high speed, crushed the Legos, and I went roaring out of the room. And I never went in that room again. And that's another thing about her. It was like she almost had an imaginary friend all the time. I would kind of notice it when we were playing together, but you know, most kids have imaginary friends. Stories started coming around me of what my family's experienced. Now, one thing you got to understand about my dad, he wasn't much of a believer in this stuff. My dad, things happen, they happen, but he wasn't really into, if he sees it, okay, fine. You know, it was just, I always used to say aliens could land in his front yard. He'd probably just go out there and go, just don't wreck my lawn. You know, like, nothing really seemed to faze my father. Now, my mom told me this one story of when she was babysitting Kelly, or did I say, we'll call her Kelly now. I think it's Shelly. She was, we'll go back to Shelly. My mom told me this one story when she was babysitting Shelly, that she went to do the laundry. And Shelly was down, like, of course, she was babysitting her, 4 years old. She had her right beside her all the time. And they went to go do the laundry. And like I told you, it's down there in the dark. And Shelly was in the corner, like actually in the corner, talking to somebody. And then she turned to my mom and said, "Auntie, who's that?" And my mom just grabbed her and went roaring up the stairs immediately. Mom didn't like the feel. Nobody liked the feel of that place. It was just, it had a really bad vibe, if you want to say. It was like, almost like, it was dark. I even remember being this ancient. I remember being 6 years old, and it was not only cold, but it was dark. Another incident that most of everybody experienced there, the adults, there was this room. It was freshly wallpapered, and there was one of those lights in there, you know, that had the steel string on it, one of those old-fashioned lights. And the light would always turn on by itself. Now, it could be a matter of fact of bad electricity. It's an old house. But this usually when they'd go in and the light was on after they turned it off and had left the room for like an hour and then go by it to go to the kitchen or whatever, it was on and the string was swinging. So that's a little bit interesting. Now, one of my aunts actually told a story when I was about in my 20s, ancient times. When I was in my 20s, she told a story, and I overheard her telling this story. And so she'd go by this room, notice that the light was on, she'd turn it off, go get the coffee or whatever, go back to the living room. And this is when they were all together. And, you know, about an hour later, time for more coffee, go get more coffee, lights back on, turn it off, went back. And then the next time she went to go turn the light off, she swears, I never saw it myself because I wasn't there. She swears that it looked like somebody had scratched the wallpaper. Now, I wish I would have seen that. And then again, being 6 years old, maybe I didn't want to see that. And I guess also in that room, they had trouble keeping the wallpaper up. But prior to that, could be because maybe it was so cold in there was damp. Maybe there was damp coming up from the basement with all the dirt. And maybe that's why they couldn't. But the wallpaper stayed up in other rooms. But for some reason, that room, the wallpaper didn't want to stay up. And again, my aunt swears that there were claw marks, like somebody had went like this in the wallpaper. So of course the house was freaking out my cousins. And my mom told me this story the other day. My dad and my uncle went over there to get hockey sweaters because my dad was a coach, and he coached a lot of teams and that, and everybody, all the boys in our family played hockey. And my cousin had given them the keys to go get these hockey sweaters, and my cousin's wife didn't know they were over there getting the hockey sweaters. And when she came in and she heard all this, heard them speaking and the rumbling around, I guess she just freaked, because she instantly went to the paranormal. That's how bad that house was. But needless to say, they didn't stay there very long. I only remember one Halloween there, and then they moved. And I don't know. I would really like to know, because that house is still standing. If who's ever living in there had any experiences, or anybody who lived there afterwards has had any experiences. Again, this is a house that's across from the museum, which used to be the school. And because, yeah, so that was my first ghost story. And again, I would really like, I'd really be curious to know if anybody else who's ever lived in that house ever had any experiences. Because again, everybody that was in that house experienced something. And it wasn't just like one person who experienced something. You'd have 6 people over there, and you'd hear weird noises or talking, and cold all the time. Absolutely cold all the time. That was my first story, my first ghost story that my mom had to actually sit me down and explain what ghosts possibly were. Even though I kind of knew from like watching cartoons and stuff like that. But when it comes to Scooby-Doo ghosts and ghosts in real life, there's a big difference. Even when you're 6 years old. So there it is. I've been promising to tell that story for a few years now, especially after it appeared in the Edmonton Journal in a cartoon, which again, I'm really thankful for, that somebody actually took the time and took that story and did like a cartoon storyboard. That was an honor. So I told that story, and one of these days, I am going to dig it up. I got my dad on audio, and I recorded him about 2009. I asked him, what about your ghost story? Because there was a house, my grandpa, 10 kids, got married a second time after grandma died, another 9 kids, 19 kids. My dad was part of the first 10, and he would they moved around the province. My grandpa was even the greenskeeper to the golf course that's downtown. He was a greenskeeper, so my dad actually kind of grew up on that golf course. And around there moving around, they actually ended up renting this huge farmhouse. And there was a very spooky, kind of frightening story he told me about that. So if I can dig it up, maybe one of these days I'll get it together and I'll present it to you guys. So again, thank you for sticking with us, and thank you for joining us. And I do apologize that there's no investigations right now. I'm anxious because I've got new toys. We've got new toys. I've got a FLIR. I've got a system now where you get 4 monitors, and you can put night vision cameras all around that has sound, so it can pick up sound. By the way, those aren't ghosts. That's my neighbors. It's Saturday night. I think they're getting a little tipsy. So anyway, yeah, anxious to get out again, anxious to do some more investigations, maybe working on a few theories that I have, and working those out, and sharing whatever findings we have with the paranormal community, and maybe helping others figure out what's going on in their homes. The reason why I started a team way back in 2004 was to take some of these theories I had and to try and either prove them or disprove them and share our findings with the paranormal community. But when people started inviting us into their homes, we found out that maybe we could help them out. And a lot of the times, a lot of the stuff that was happening in their houses were normal. And we did bring a lot of peace of mind to people. And we actually we actually may have saved somebody's health in the meantime. Maybe I'll get into that in another story. But anyway, again, thank you very much for joining us on this journey, and we'll try and find a way to get content to you guys, and just to keep us on our toes regarding the paranormal, and to keep connected with you guys. So everyone, please take care, please stay healthy, and remember, if you are having some trouble dealing with all what's going on around us, don't go through it alone. If you can't talk to a friend or a relative, there are places that can help you, and I'll leave a link again, because I know it's been very hard on me, not being able to see my mom, not being able to see my dear friends. So I know a lot of people are finding it very hard. So I will leave a link below to some services in Alberta that you can reach out to. If you're having trouble finding services in your area, email me through Facebook, email me through our page, and I'll see if I can find something in your area. I can't promise anything, but I'll try. So anyway, everyone, take care, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Later.